So we work with refugees and immigrants, low-income refugees and immigrants. We decided to shift from refugees only because that's a political classification, right?
Mm-hmm.
So kids coming to us from Guatemala and Colombia did not have the government designation, but they were fleeing violence and horror, right? We segregate. So we have our community that we're working with for them to understand their new country, to learn the language without being bullied or made fun of, for them to be proud of their names and their cultural background and heritage, to bring parents in so they understand America and the place schools play in it. And then I believe when people are confident in who they are and have the skills, then they're ready to integrate back in, right? That then the field is level. You're not being, well, I'm less than, and then the community receiving you is like, oh, they're so needy, or being made fun of. Is like, how do we do work on both sides to create understanding? You know, in our school, for some of our kids, it's the first time they've sat in a desk and held a pencil at the age of 13. That's really tough to just put them in a mainstream classroom without preparing them and teaching in a safe way without fear of being judged.
Hello and welcome to Say Hi to the Future, a podcast aimed at highlighting the human side of ingenuity, clever, inventive, and original thinking. My name is Ken Tenser, CEO of SpyderWorks. With me today is Luma Mufleh, founding director of Fugees Family, a nonprofit organization that uses the power of soccer, education, and community to empower refugee children to successfully integrate into the United States. Like this video if you enjoy our show and subscribe to our channel. Leave us a comment with who we should interview next. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show. Luma, welcome to Say Hi to the Future.
Thank you, Ken, for having me.
Now, for our listeners and our viewers today, Luma is a very special guest, and I can't thank you enough for taking the time to be with us. You are a CNN top 10 hero, and CNN's heroes are described as everyday people doing extraordinary things to change the world. And your story, other than CNN, it's been on CBS, New York Times, Forbes, and many more. And I'll be honest, I listened to you speak, and I'm not sure if I heard the words so much as felt them. I physically came away from that talk with understanding the passion, the emotion, and unfortunately, or the pain that you've gone through, that you've experienced. And what an experience for me. So if you can just tell us a little bit about your story and how you are starting to change the world because of it.
Yeah, I think my story goes back all the way to the 1960s. My grandmother, mom, Syrian, born in Damascus, and in the 60s, when the first Assad regime was taking over Syria, my grandmother, I think saw the writing on the wall and that things were really going to change. And so packed up her 5 children. She was pregnant with her 6th, and drove to neighboring Jordan. My mother was 16 at the time, and really remembers that experience. It shaped her and scarred her. And my grandfather refused to go. He's like, it's another coup. It's another, like the Middle East, that's all you hear, coup, war. You never know which one to take seriously. So he's like, I'll just stay here and you guys come back when it blows over. But he ended up joining his family 2 months later after his factory seized by the government, and his 2 brothers were arrested and disappeared, never to be seen again. And they started in Jordan, in a new country. And even though the language was the same, Jordan and Syria are both Muslim majority countries, they were still treated as outsiders. And that has shaped our family and our identity. And then fast forward when, I went to college in the United States. My senior year, I ended up applying for political asylum. I'm gay, and in Jordan and other parts of the Middle East, you can get the death penalty for that. So as my classmates were applying for jobs and internships and grad schools, here I was prepping for the biggest interview of my life, my asylum interview. I was very fortunate that I got it. But then I had to start in a country with no family. And that eventually led me to my work of working with refugee kids, initially through soccer and then eventually through schools.
So tell us about that, because you have, you're the founder of Fugees Family, and tell us a little bit about that and how soccer became sort of a focal point, and how you connect and help so many.
It was a wrong turn. Yeah, I was living in Atlanta. I would drive regularly to the Middle Eastern grocery store to get authentic pita bread and hummus, and missed my turn one day and ended up driving into this little community on the outskirts of Atlanta. First I was past a mosque, and then I passed a Buddhist temple, and it just felt like, where am I? This doesn't feel like Georgia, or at least the Georgia I was very familiar with. And then I U-turned into this apartment complex, and then outside there's a group of kids playing soccer. They had rocks set up as goals, or playing with a really raggedy soccer ball. And it reminded me of home, of the way I grew up playing soccer in the streets of Jordan with my cousins and neighbors and friends. And I watched the kids play, and I'd been coaching club soccer for a while. And so I had a ball in my trunk, grabbed that. Boys saw that, they wanted the ball, I wanted to play. Universal language of soccer. We haggled, and they let me into their game. And so I would say everything started with soccer, and that's core to who we are. It's a universal language. The initial group I met were from Afghanistan, South Sudan, and Liberia. Yeah, it was then my education into refugees and how they're treated in the United States. And then my responsibility to do something.
But how do you, you said your responsibility. Boy, I think it's a lot of ours responsibility, but there are very few people who really step up. What was that one driving motivator that said, was there something, or is it just something that you absolutely felt you had to do?
I think it was that slow unraveling, right? Like, I'm coaching kids, and some of my players don't know how to read, right? And my parents sent me to British and American schools growing up because they believed that was the best the world had to offer. And I believed every school in the United States was like my State Department run high school in Jordan. Because I was like, this is what America gives. And I was so wrong. I'd read about that in college. I'd taken classes, but it doesn't really hit you until it's face to face, and it's people are being affected. I felt I was 2 degrees removed from that experience, change a few details that could have been me or my family. If these were my kids, my own kids, what would I do? And that's why I acted. It wasn't this like master plan. It was like, oh, wait, like, players are not reading. Like, what's the point of, like, we can play soccer, we can feel good for like 3-4 hours a week, but what happens after that?
So what does happen after that? How does soccer integrate into their lives and integrate into their transition from, refugee to American, if you will, or American citizen, or fully invested citizen? How does that bridge get crossed?
You think about like someone who's fled their home because of war or persecution, and they're coming into this new land that they may have some misconceptions about. Money grows on trees. There's everything that you could ever want is here. But then I think what is it that's familiar that maybe like lowers your heart rate, right? Like, if you're in this foreign place, you want to see something familiar. You want to either eat it, taste it, smell it, or play it. Soccer is something that everybody loves, or at least our kids love, right? And it's a reminder of home that is filled with positive memories, not negative ones. For a lot of kids, playing in their camps or in their neighborhoods was a way to escape the horrors around them. And so when they come here, we're like, oh, here, you can come play. And you're surrounded by kids from all over the world that have that same lived experience. And no one's going to judge you. Just play. You don't need a language, right? Like goal is goal in every language, right? This is this, like your
Yeah.
hand gestures, and it's play. And then for kids who are new, like here's a built-in social group, your team that has your back, right? Like immediately you've got a group of 12 to 14 kids that are working towards the same goal. And that's why it's still core in our school. Like every kid plays it. It's a motivator. It's bringing community together. It's a really good way to teach character. And yeah.
It's amazing what sport can do for all of us. And I'm not saying that can't be had on the couch, but it's amazing what sport can do for youth today. You've also equated it. You said something very powerful. You said that we've seen advances in every part of our lives except humanity. How so? And are you talking about the root cause of, I mean, geopolitically, we're seeing millions of refugees today. We're always seeing refugees, but I mean, in this specific moment in time, we're seeing an incredible outpouring of European refugees. Is this something that's systemic? It's part of humanity, or is it something we can change?
I mean, when I gave that TED talk in 2017, there were 62 million. Today, there's upwards of 90 million. 5 years later, it's upwards of 90 and growing, right? And so, as a global society, we see problems, we solve it, right? We try to solve it. But when it comes to the way we treat each other and the way we protect each other, we're kind of like, well, it's fine, or this is going to happen. And it's like, we don't take action, right? Like, but yet we demonize refugees. We blame them for what? Like for conflict that they had no hand in. And it's just like astounding to me that we can, create a phone where we can do everything. We can talk to people, order from everywhere in the world, have a car pick us up. And then we can't give people a safe place to live and eat and breathe and learn. Like that's, we said after World War II, never again. And here we are again and again.
It sort of seems to me that we forget sometimes that we spend about 70 years on a planet that's been around for millions, and that our impact or our importance is not as great as we might always believe or want or will it to be. And that might be a good start in understanding why for this short time we should be supporting one another rather than not.
Yeah.
So tell me about Fugees' family and how that got started. I know we've touched a little bit on it, but where it is today and the impact that it's making on refugee youth.
Yeah, I mean, we started 2004 as a pickup soccer game in a parking lot. 2006, formalized the 501c3. Was doing mostly after school and summer programming, and then 2007 started our school. 6 kids, a teacher in a church basement, and that grew. 2013, we were accredited in Georgia, and then 2018 we opened a second campus in Columbus, Ohio. And now we're partnering with school districts to implement our model in their towns across America. Our first district partnership is with Bowling Green, Kentucky. So we're helping them design what their newcomer program would look like, train their teachers, build a diverse staff. And we're really excited about this new growth, because we've got our little bubble, but if we want to impact as many kids as possible, we have to work with schools all over the country. And I think people want to do right by kids. And I think there's this appetite for partnership and learning together and working instead of being against each other.
And when you bring these games together and you build this, is it, it's refugees, is it immigrants, and then an integration of longer term Americans, just so there's that whole understanding and appreciation for each side? How does that work?
So we work with refugees and immigrants, low-income refugees and immigrants. We decided to shift from refugees only because that's a political classification, right?
Mhm.
So kids coming to us from Guatemala and Colombia did not have the government designation, but they were fleeing violence and horror, right? And so for us is we segregate. So we have our community that we're working with for them to understand their new country, to learn the language without being bullied or made fun of, for them to be proud of their names and their cultural background and heritage, to bring parents in so they understand America and the place schools play in it. And then I believe when people are confident in who they are and have the skills, then they're ready to integrate back in, right? That then the field is level. You're not being, well, I'm less than, and then the community receiving you is like, oh, they're so needy, or being made fun of. Is like, how do we do work on both sides to create understanding? You know, in our school, for some of our kids, it's the first time they've sat in a desk and held a pencil at the age of 13, right?
Mhm.
That's really tough to just put them in a mainstream classroom without preparing them and teaching in a safe way without fear of being judged.
And so, what does this help them to learn? I mean, um, other than skills and having people surrounding you that care about you, that have your team, there's got to be, I mean, they've already learned some incredible life skills, but things around resilience and passion and belief in oneself. It just seems like there is so much more going on, or the opportunity to bring out so much for the rest of their lives in what you're doing. Is that sort of implicit? I
I
don't
mean,
know if
it's
you,
right. Like
young
if
boys
you're,
don't always appreciate that.
I mean, if you're like a soccer coach or any coach, right, you want to bring out the best in your team. And so what does that look like, right? And for us, like we see our kids and their families as an asset, right? Like people will look at refugees, oh, they've gone through this, you know, they've escaped their country, they've maybe witnessed like rape and torture and well, we can't expect anything more of them. They've had too much, right?
Mhm.
Instead of saying, hey, they've gone through all that. Now they're starting anew in a country. They can accomplish everything. Like learning English is easy compared to what they've been through, right? And so building on that strength of their lived experience and having them see that, like, yeah, you went through that, like, can't say it, I guess, on live radio, right? But look at what you can do. You know, look at how many languages you do speak. Look at what your parents have sacrificed. Like, you know, most parents can't even fathom the choices of having to like take your kid and protect them the way our parents have. And then learning about all the different groups in their schools. Like we have kids from warring factions in the same classroom, on the same team, and now dating, which I think is like the ultimate success, right? And they're learning to see where they fit in.
What a message. Just want to repeat one of the things you said, look at what you can do. I mean, what a message for each and every one of us in our lives now. So you have a book that I believe was just released, Learning America, One Woman's Fight for Educational Justice for Refugee Children. Can you tell us a little bit about the book and how it came to be? And I've written a few books, not on that topic, but it's a painful process. So just tell us,
Brutal.
tell us a
um,
little bit about it.
it's the book I wish I had when I started this work. You know, it talks about everything from my grandmother's story and her influence on me to starting the work with the Fugees and that pickup soccer game, and then our school and all the mistakes I've made. I think so many books have this superhero narrative, and you read them and you're like, I can't do that. Look at how like great and perfect they are. And I really want to talk about like mistakes I've made along the way and what I've learned, and that this work is hard. It's hard, and it's also energizing. Like I love what I do. And then the process of writing, I mean, I don't want to like say thank God for the pandemic, but you know, my travel was limited. I'm very disciplined, and so carving out 2 hours every morning to just write, and it became kind of like, a workout, right? So I knew from 8 to 10 every single day, including weekends, like 7 days a week, there was writing. And sometimes, five words came on that page, and, I was like, all right, they're valuing thinking time. When I first started, I was like, okay, I just got to turn out. It's like, nope, I actually have to think this through and how I want to frame it. And I had an incredible collaborator and a wonderful editor who was brutal, and I like that, like, nope, like, explain more here. I don't understand this, cut these words, and it was just good. It was good to have, something from beginning to end.
It's funny. I mean, as I hear people recount their stories, in my first time speaking with my editor and getting back all the red marks, I was like, well, why didn't you just tell me you thought it was a terrible book? And he said, it's not, but didn't you understand the word edit and editor? I really like it. And I was going, wow, thank God he liked it. It does take a lot. But so this is a book that you wished you had. How is it a book that when I read it, when other readers, what is it going to leave me with and take me to and helping or bringing educational justice about?
I think it's a book that will take you on that roller coaster. You're going to be laughing out loud one chapter and sobbing the next. It's all through stories. It's humanizing our experiences. And like, I believe when people understand our stories, they're going to be more willing to engage and create places where not just refugee kids belong, but all kids belong, and that the work is hard and it's not one person. It is like a power team of getting that done. But I think part of the book is to humanize our experience. Like, we're not just these like sound bites on the news. We're people in your neighborhoods, in your schools, in your offices, in your restaurants. Like, we're everywhere. And this is who we are. And America welcomed me in 97, like, open arms, and it's more than capable of doing it for everyone.
Well, and I think that with the efforts that you've put in and the resilience you've shown, I think we're all very happy that they did. As our time draws to a close today, Luma, one thing that I also heard you say is don't feel sorry for refugees, believe in them. How can we do that? How can we show newcomers, refugees or immigrants, which frankly all of our families have been, might not want to go, that we do believe them and provide them the path to opportunity?
Part of it is the giving dynamic, right? Like, when we give, we enjoy that feeling, right? Like, of giving someone, whether it's clothes or food, but then that long term is very unhealthy, right? Like, what are the ways that we're helping someone find a job, right?
Mm-hmm.
Supporting them through that, teaching, walking alongside instead of feeling like you're the one that's saving the day, right? And learning from the families, like, about their culture and their food and their experiences, to see what they can contribute, not what they're taking, right? Yeah, I mean, my grandmother told me that, like, when I was 8, don't feel sorry for them, believe in them. And that's something we should feel for everyone. Like, the human spirit has the ability to overcome so much, and people just need time to heal, and sometimes, like, just sitting with someone having tea for a couple of hours because they need company, or taking a walk in a park with someone. You don't need a common language. You can walk together and be present and not have to have a conversation. It's inviting someone to cook out. It's taking someone trick-or-treating or Thanksgiving or 4th of July, right? And then it's also learning, like, hey, it was Eid a couple of days ago. If someone invites you to that, go, enjoy it, celebrate it, understand it.
Making people feel that they are wanted,
Well,
and as you said before, human, welcome, wanted, human, an integral part of it. So thank you so much for being here today. Again, CNN Hero, as they describe it, everyday people doing extraordinary things I think I would characterize you as an extraordinary person, and I just thank you again for being on and for being who you are.
Well, thank you for having me. I enjoyed this conversation.
Take care.